Hello and welcome to the Capelle Livechat, where you can get insights on the business world and staying relevant amidst our changing times. My name is Mark Lee and I'm your host for today, and our session is all about the people side of change. With me I have Jackie Yap and Claire Lim, two of Capelle Consulting's long-time standing consultants. Great to have you guys here.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Nice to see you.
Okay, so this thing about the people side of change, we know that there's so much change going on about us and that the people side of things sometimes may not receive the attention that it deserves. Care to shed some light with us on why that might be the case?
So amidst COVID, it's really sped up the rate of change in organizations, and many companies are really looking at how they can digitalize some of their processes. Capelle has had the privilege to work with a group of SMEs, and what we're currently doing is that we're going to their organizations and really studying their processes, trying to understand what can we automate, what can we digitalize, where can we possibly introduce AI to help make their lives better.
I see. So it's really about how there's this push for digitalization, and with that comes this big focus on things like the tasks, the different forms, different processes to focus on. But at the end of the day, there's really people who are doing these jobs, isn't it? And then it's really about figuring out what do these people feel, how do they really respond to all this change going about them. So how exactly do you connect then and find out what's going on with these people?
So actually, as we go into organization, we chat with them, we realize there are a lot of different feelings that these people have, Some of them are afraid. Can I cope with this change? Many are uncertain. Will I be made redundant? Some are impatient. How long will this thing take? 3 months, 3 years? Some are skeptical. Will it truly help me? And some are wondering, will my company support me through this change? Will they give me the necessary skills and equipment I need to be successful at my job?
I think that's all very, very relevant data, isn't it? And I'm sure for many of our listeners and viewers, that's something that they're probably facing, right? They're going about their change process and they realize, hey, people are responding, they're reacting in a certain way. And so you have all these concerned employees on your hands suddenly. I just wonder, how did you go about actually surfacing all this data? Because that's something I think is quite useful for us to learn as well.
So there's no easy way to do it. You can't just wave a magic wand and get this information. What we did was we took the time to have focus group, interviews, observations. We walked the ground with these staff to understand how they go about their daily lives so that we could see what challenges they face, what work they need to do, what really makes a difference in their lives. This really gave us all these very valuable insights.
Okay, so it's really about taking the time to be very intentional, to walk the ground with the people, understand the work that they're really doing, because then when you bring in, say, a solution, it's very much relevant to them. Okay, so that's quite wonderful. I think we understand that addressing these emotions is also something that's very important. So maybe we can spend a bit of time on that. You have surfaced these emotions by spending very intentional time with your staff. But what do you do now? You have all these emotions that you have surfaced. What's the next step?
Well, the cool thing, Mark, is that now we have the help of neuroscience.
Okay.
And we also understand how the brain works. So actually our brain is amazing because it's developed for survival.
Okay, yeah.
So every 5 seconds we're scanning the environment to see whether something is a threat or reward.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, we perceive social threats and rewards with the same intensity as physical threats and rewards.
Wow, the same. Okay. That's really quite interesting. Yeah.
And there's this gentleman called David Rock. He wrote a couple of books. One is, Your Brain at Work, Coaching with the Brain in Mind.
Nice.
And he actually highlighted 5 areas that can actually trigger either a threat or a reward response.
Okay. Wow. And I think that's probably very relevant to many of our listeners and viewers because they want to be able to connect with their staff well.
Yes.
Right? They've come to the point where they realize, I've got the emotions, I've got my staff where I want them, but how do I really engage them? Maybe in a framework, I think is what you're suggesting that this gentleman has for us. So can you break that down for us?
Sure. The first one is status. So am I less or better or equal than others?
Okay, status. Yeah.
So a threat response would be, let's say, for example, if you criticize me in front of my team, then I would feel threatened.
Okay.
But if you say, hey, Jackie, I really see that you put in a lot of thought into it.
Yeah.
Or, hey, well done on the report, then chances are I'm more open and more comfortable, to move forward. The second is certainty. So, hey, what's going to happen? So if there's no information, there's a black hole, I'm not sure what's going to happen, then chances are that, I might be fearful or uncertain, like, what Claire mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
But if, let's say you, Mark, if you're my boss, if you say, hey, Jackie, this is what's going to happen, this is why we need to change, and how can you get prepared, then chances are, I'd be more willing to step forward.
Okay, so let me just jump in here. And I think you've settled for us kind of two of the steps of the framework so far, right? We have the status, which is really about how you engage people, the importance that they have to contribute to the change effort. And then you mentioned certainty as well, which is what exactly do I hope you can contribute, or what exactly are you going to get yourself into as this change rolls out? So we're really talking big picture here about settling and engaging with our staff in a way that is very, very focused, very intentional to guide them through the change process. Okay, so 2 out of the, how many more do we have to go, Jackie?
3.
Okay, 3 more. We're doing good.
Yeah, so the third one is autonomy.
Okay.
So whether I have a choice in the matter. So Mark, if you tell me, Jackie, it's my way or the highway, chances are I would probably,
go
take the highway here.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, the fourth one is relatedness. So, whether, this person is a friend or a foe, or, whether I feel safe. So a threat response would be, if you leave me out of emails or if you exclude me from meetings, then, I'll be uncomfortable.
Sure.
But, if you say, hey, Jackie, I really want to hear your views on this matter, what do you think? Then chances are I'd be more comfortable.
Okay.
And then the last one is fairness. Whether I feel like I'm treated fairly.
Sure.
So, open communication, or even helping me, see other perspectives on this matter is very helpful.
Okay, so I think that's really quite a comprehensive framework and many big ideas there. So allow me to just check my understanding and also bring our listeners and viewers along to make sure we've caught all the points you brought up. So we're looking at S being status, right, which is really about the importance of the person with regards to the change. Then you've got C, which is really about certainty. What exactly is expected of me? What am I going to run into as the change is rolled out? And then A is autonomy. Do I have a place in this? Do I have a say in all that's going on? Correct? I'm doing good so far? Okay, hope you guys are following. All right, 3 out of 5 so far. And then the R is relatedness, right? Which is really about how involved is everyone? How connected is the efforts of different members, different perspectives? And then F on fairness, which is, am I really having a fair treatment? Am I having a fair say in the overall process? Did I catch all that?
That's right. So that's the scarf model. And what I love about it is, just like a scarf, it keeps you warm and comfortable.
Wonderful. It really, really wraps up, I think, a lot of the learning that I'm sure many organizations want to capture, right? Because we know, I think it's unavoidable that emotions will rise, emotions will be a thing when we go about change management. But how you then address those emotions, when done well, I think can show your team and your people that this is really going to be good for them. Well, I think that's really a wonderful set of concepts, a powerful framework. Maybe we can talk about application then with some specific examples of the work Capelle has done to help our listeners and viewers really get a better grasp and insight on how this can be applied.
So Capelle has recently helped some SMEs introduce speech to text. So what we did at first is show and tell. We showed them what does the technology look like, what can it do and what can't it do. This gives them certainty. Yes, great job. Next, we let them trial out the solution. Let them test it. What do you think? Do you like it? We give them the autonomy.
I'm getting there.
Autonomy to make a choice as to how they can use it and whether it will help them. And of course, the way we do it is we include as many people as possible. Relatedness. Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
And we try to make sure that everyone is important to us. There's no more or less important. Everyone who's present really plays an important role in this pilot. And of course, we're very transparent about the whole process. We share what's happening, what works, what doesn't, the timeline, so people know what's coming up.
So the elements of status and fairness, as you mentioned, everyone's involved.
Yes.
Every perspective is valuable.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really quite key when we talk about this framework, because you can come in with an idea, you can come in with a technology that you want your staff to adopt, but really understanding their perspectives on how this transition is going to happen is so key, isn't it?
I think you've said it very rightly, Mark, because these people are the owners, they are the experts. We are not. We come in to share technology, we come in to facilitate a process, but it really takes these people on the ground to really understand how should they optimize and use the solution to really help them in their work. And we need to respect their views.
I think that's great. The visual picture I'm getting right now is kind of like bringing two worlds together, right? So you have the one world where it's, the management and, maybe they bring in a third-party consultant with all their expertise, but then you've also got the world of the subject matter experts, the soldiers on the ground, if you will. And you kind of have to meet halfway, right? Using something like the SCARF model, right? Which really allows for the people elements to be addressed very intentionally.
Exactly.
And I think in that meeting, you probably get a more viable or sustainable product than if just one or the other tried to force their way, isn't it? Okay, fantastic. I think that's just a visual picture I'm using to capture what we're discussing here. And hopefully that's useful for our listeners and viewers out there as well. And guys, we are rounding up our time on this session very soon. So I'd just like to hear some closing thoughts or maybe a takeaway for our listeners to already start making some progress, taking some action on this people side of change. Maybe we can start with Jackie.
Sure. Yeah, Mark, we take effort and time to select the appropriate hardware, the appropriate software.
Yeah.
Similarly, we should also take effort and time to help people get ready for change. We shouldn't underestimate the effort that it will take to do that well.
I think that's a really powerful insight. Spending so much time on the hardware, software, the people side of things deserves as much or maybe even more time and focus. Thanks, Jackie. How about you, Claire?
I think the starting point is really important. Often we start with the technology at the start and try to force fit it or force it into an organization, but really we should start with the people. What do they do with their jobs and how can we help them? What change is needed? And then what is the most suitable technology? And then to go from there. I think that's a very powerful way to get change done.
I think that's a really wonderful insight. I think many people listening and viewing this will say, that's quite true, right? When I start with the people in mind, then it's really about producing a kind of person that is able to take in the technology, and then you match, right, the needs of the person. So it's a very good match between the person and the technology rather than seeing them as two separate entities.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful insights. Thank you so much, Jackie and Claire. And to all our listeners and viewers, we thank you so much for joining us on this session of the Capelle Live Chat. Again, this is where you can get your business insights on staying relevant amidst our changing times. My name is Mark Lee, and on behalf of Capelle Consulting, we'd like to thank both Jackie and Claire for their time on today's session, and we will see you in a few weeks' time for the next session. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.